Let's talk about how to tell a story in English. So first of all, we need to talk about what a story is. What is telling a story? Well, a story is just when you talk about past events, and it can be something written in a piece of paper or online, or it can be something that you say, something spoken. When we're telling a story, we can use two tenses, usually the past simple and the past continuous. Here we have an example. John was studying in bed. Suddenly, he heard a loud noise. So that's past continuous, John was studying, and the past simple. He heard a loud noise. Now, the structure of a story is very simple. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. In the beginning, we talk about the characters and what they were doing when the story started. Then, in the middle, we talk about the most important parts of the story. So, what happened? What was the problem the characters had? And what did they do to solve the problem? And then finally, in the end, we see how the story ends. So, can they solve the problem? What happens there? So that's a very simple structure: beginning, middle, and end. Now, let's talk about linkers and how to connect sentences. So first, we're going to talk about one particular type of linkers, which is time sequencers. We use these words to connect sentences in time. So this happened and this happened. But which happened first? Or how much time went by between this one and this one? So that's when time sequencers come to help. One of those are then and after that, or two of those. We use them to say that one event happened immediately after the other. For example, the dog ran away from him. Then Peter went back to his car. You can find the story about Peter in our campus. So then and after that are used to say when something happened immediately after the other. We can use the following day or week to talk about something that happened the next day or the next week. For example, John took an exam. The following week, he got his result. We can also use 2, 3, 5, 10 minutes later, or we can say 2 hours later, or 3 days later, to give a time reference, again, when something happened, 2 minutes later. For example, the dog started to run. 2 minutes later, the dog stopped. Finally, we can use when to join two actions in time. They happened at the same time. For example, Peter was driving his car when he saw a small dog in the middle of the road. So they happened at the same time. Now let's talk about connectors. What are these connectors? Well, they don't join sentences in time, but they join them in meaning. Let's see some examples. One of them is because. We use because to explain why something happened. For example, he couldn't make the call. He couldn't make the call because there was no signal. So why couldn't he make the call? Because there was no signal. We join these two sentences in in meaning. We can also use so to talk about the result. For example, the dog barked at him and started to run. So Peter followed it. So we connect these two ideas. One makes the other happen. So Peter followed it. We can use but to contrast two ideas. Let's see the example. Peter started the car, but the dog didn't move. So Peter started the car, but the dog didn't move. And finally, we can also use although with a very similar meaning. Although Peter got out of his car carefully, the dog ran away from him. So although he got out of his car carefully, the dog ran away from him. So let's try and see how much you can remember about all of these ideas on how to tell a story. Can you remember the three different parts of a story? The structure of the story? You're right. We have the beginning, the middle, and the end. Great, good job. Let's test your memory again. Can you remember the 4 different time sequences and the 4 connectors of this lesson? That's not easy. How many can you remember? Well, here we have them. The 4 time sequences, then or after that, the following day, week, month, 2 or 3 or 5 minutes later, and when. And the connectors, because, so, but, and although. Now, again, here we have them again. All right, so that's it for today. Hopefully that was useful on how to write a good story.